Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. For the past few weeks I've been staying in Toronto, and while I was here I of course went to the Toronto International Film Festival, also known as TIFF, which was honestly a great experience. Not only was the festival excellently run, not only was the city of Toronto buzzing with passion and film lovers the entire time, but I saw 12 films at the festival and every single one of them I liked, which you'll know if you've been to a film festival before is kind of crazy. So I guess we should just go ahead and talk about them. Oh, and by the way, not all the movies I saw even have trailers yet, so I might have to get a bit creative with the footage. So The Exiles was the first film I saw for this festival, and honestly it's probably the one I have the least to say about. This is the second feature from Spanish director Belén Funes, and focuses on the relationship between a mother and a daughter who are both grieving. And it's pretty good, you know, it's mainly anchored by the two central performances which are really strong actually, as well as a beautifully tender score which reminded me of Nicholas Britell's work on Moonlight. Also, The Exiles uses a lot of close-ups, and I was sat literally in the front row, so rest in peace to my neck muscles, I guess. It's funny how much something like that can impact a viewing experience. The Fire Inside is the debut directorial feature from Rachel Morrison, the celebrated cinematographer known for her work on Black Panther and Fruitvale Station, as well as becoming the first woman ever nominated for the Best Cinematography Oscar back in 2018 for her work on Mudbound, which is a crazy stat. This was also written by Barry Jenkins, yes, that is the Barry Jenkins, and tells the true story of Clarissa Shields, a boxer from Flint, Michigan. And look, I'll be honest, I'm from England and I'm not really into boxing, so I'd never even heard of Clarissa Shields going into this movie. In fact, after briefly glancing at the plot summary on Letterboxd, I presumed this film was going to be about the Flint water crisis. But no, this is in fact a sports movie, one which I think walks a really good line between being that classic tried and tested story about hope and hard work, but which also plays around with that formula and experiments with the standard tropes of the genre. Most importantly, The Fire Inside has this really interesting structure to it, which I kind of saw as a meta-commentary on how we perceive the structure of our own lives, and indeed the athletes we look up to. This film really puts into question what victory means for someone like Clarissa Shields. And that's all I'll say for now. I don't want to spoil how this movie is structured, because I think that's one of its best attributes, even if the pacing can suffer a little because of it. We also have two great performances here. Newcomer Ryan Destiny is excellent, and Paperboy himself, Mr. Brian Tyree Henry, once again proves here why he's one of the best and most likable actors of his generation. Bring Them Down is a very tense, very human, and very Irish film about difficult relationships and spontaneous acts of shocking violence which occur in the seemingly idyllic countryside, and which includes Barry Keoghan playing an unpredictable weirdo. And hang on, haven't I seen this before? Well, actually no, because honestly, compared to Bring Them Down, The Banshees of Inisherin is a cheerful, optimistic romp which the whole family can enjoy. To put it another way, Bring Them Down is one brutal viewing experience. Like, sure, it has this fable-like quality to it, being a morality play about rival farmers in the beautiful green mountains, but this is all juxtaposed with just so much grit and dirt and hatred, whether that's coming from the characters or from debut director Christopher Andrews, who focuses much of his attention on capturing the physical weight of everything that's going on. While watching this, I really felt the tiredness of these characters, the stress, the ache, the anguish. It's a real attack on the senses in that way, and I think that's quite a difficult thing to do as a filmmaker, especially when your audience are all sitting in such comfy chairs, so fair play. Queer is the newest film from Luca Guadagnino, who is honestly one of my favourite directors working today. Adapted from William S. Burroughs' short novel of the same name, the film stars Daniel Craig as an American expat living in 1950s Mexico City, who lives a solitary life filled with sex and drugs and longing, before meeting and falling in love with a younger man and... yeah, maybe this isn't one you should watch with your parents. However, you definitely should seek this out in the coming months, especially if you are a fan of Guadagnino, because this film basically feels like his greatest hits, if that makes sense. Like, did you enjoy the, I don't know, eroticism of Call Me By Your Name, or the disorientating weirdness of Suspiria, or the excellent Trenton Reznor score from Challengers? Well, Queer has got you covered on all three of those things. And even if you sit down, start watching the thing, and think, this isn't really for me, which was certainly my experience, keep watching it, because this movie has one of the biggest and most surprising course changes I've ever seen. Now, this shift will not be for everyone, but I don't know, I thought it was a welcome change. But yeah, very interested to see what people have to say about this one. Also, it's probably the best performance of Daniel Craig's career, and underrated character actor Jason Schwartzman steals basically every scene he's in. The End was one of the weaker films I saw this month, but it was also one of the films I have thought about the most. This is the fiction debut from Joshua Oppenheimer, who is best known for his two critically lauded documentaries, The Act of Killing and The Look of Silence, which are both explorations into genocide. Now, of the two, I have only seen The Act of Killing, but that alone was enough to convince me that Joshua Oppenheimer was a capable and confident enough director to eventually branch out and try something completely different. And now we have The End, which is basically a surreal science fiction musical set in a bunker after some sort of apocalypse. We follow this rich family walking around, singing about their predicament. There's one small plot about someone on the outside finding their bunker, which I think the marketing teams have really doubled down upon, but honestly, there is little story here, not much conflict or stakes. I couldn't really identify a 3-act structure. It is basically a vibes movie. But to be honest, I did kind of find the vibes fascinating. However, not everyone does. I saw one person online saying it's called The End because that's what you're waiting for, and even saw some people saying that it's the biggest bomb ever created by someone called Oppenheimer, which... jeez. But no, there was something about The End which I appreciated, and I think at the end of the day it does just come down to the film's weirdness. We have actors such as Tilda Swinton and Michael Shannon giving these really off-putting performances. We have this cold blue colour palette which dominates the entire runtime, and then of course there is the music, which reminded me of an old school Disney movie. It was just a completely bizarre experience. I was also just really tired when I watched this, so that probably made it even stranger. And while I don't think it works that well, I can't help but respect the weirdness, so fair play Joshua Oppenheimer. Great name, by the way. The Luckiest Man in America, directed by Samir Oliveros, is your classic, rock-solid 90-minute dark comedy. It is based on the true story of Michael Larson, played excellently here by Paul Walterhauser, who in 1984 appeared as a contestant on the game show Press Your Luck, and... well, that's all I'll say about the plot, as I do think this is one of those films you should go into blind. It's just a fascinating story. It's one of those movies where the second it finishes, you just feel compelled to research it online for like 30 minutes. And overall, I think the story is told with a lot of competence. We have great performances, like I've already mentioned. The film is edited in this tense, breakneck way, which never really gives you time to breathe or really figure out any of the characters' true intentions. And once again, the score goes really hard. I don't know what it is, man, but all these movies just had great music. I don't know what's going on. Andrea Arnold is one of those directors who doesn't make too many films, and the films she does make are not necessarily ones you're going to be rewatching every year, at least not for me. However, what she does excel at more than most directors working today is the ability to make films which stick with you. Like, I've only seen Fish Tank once, and it was over 4 years ago, but I probably think about it most weeks, to be honest. And yes, this is due to Arnold's films usually being these very real portraits of kids growing up in rough, poverty-stricken communities. But I also think it has a lot to do with how she shoots her movies. Very naturalistic, you know, handheld cameras, non-actors, the whole 9 yards. And I'd say her newest film, Bird, basically follows the same formula. Until it doesn't. Similar to Queer, this film takes a pretty big and strange leap around halfway through its runtime, and also similar to Queer, this shift probably won't be for everyone. It's certainly not something I've seen Andrea Arnold do before, it's not something I would have ever expected her to do, but for me, this leap, which involves the titular Bird character, really worked for me. I won't say any more, but yeah, definitely check this out when it comes out, along with the rest of Arnold's work if you haven't. She's definitely one of the most interesting British filmmakers of the last couple decades, and Bird is a fine example of why. Also, this film has Barry Keoghan playing a weird Irish guy. Shocker, I know, but there's this meta Saltburn reference which is pretty hilarious, so yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Saturday Night is the newest film from Jason Reitman and tells the story of what happened behind the scenes in the 90 minutes leading up to the first ever broadcast of Saturday Night Live. And the best way I can describe this movie, I think, is that it basically feels like an Aaron Sorkin script, but one where basically every character is a professional comedian. You know, walking, talking, making a joke, walking some more, talking some more, making another joke. It's that kind of thing, and I really enjoyed it, despite not being some passionate SNL superfan. Because while there are certainly tons of references and Easter eggs, I mean, the whole thing basically acts as a love letter to the show, it is able to stand on its own 2 feet due to how energetic and fluid it feels. You can fully tell how much passion went into this thing, how much fun everyone had on set, and I've got to tell you, this enthusiasm is infectious. Also, why does no one look cool anymore? Look, I understand how problematic this time period was in lots of ways, but the clothes and the hair, 10 out of 10, no notes. Can we please bring this fashion sense back? Thank you. The Piano Lesson is the feature directorial debut from Malcolm Washington, Denzel Washington's son, and stars John David Washington, also Denzel Washington's son, and is an adaptation of the 1987 stage play of the same name, written by August Wilson, who has no relation to Denzel Washington. Watching a cinematic portrayal of a play always brings up a ton of questions within me on how one should rate and review movies like this. I mean, what am I supposed to be talking about here? The play itself? The adaptation of the play to the big screen? Both? What should be rated higher? An average adaptation of an incredible play or an incredible adaptation of an average play? It's honestly something I could talk for so long about, and I am aware some people really don't like seeing plays adapted into films. But personally, I really enjoy watching stuff like this. Of course, August Wilson was a genius, of course the performances are excellent. It's always nice to be reminded of how good an actor Samuel Jackson is. However, the surprise here was debut director Malcolm Washington, who was able to add so much spectacle and grandness to the story. When it comes to August Wilson adaptations, I still do think that Fences with Denzel Washington and Viola Davis is the better experience. However, I do think The Piano Lesson does a better job at justifying its existence on the big screen, as it has a much more cinematic feel. Also, there's a scene here where basically all the characters gather around a table and passionately sing this old song for like 5 minutes straight, and I'm not gonna lie, it was peak cinema. Like, literally everyone in the theater started clapping when the song had ended. It was insane. So I saw no bad films at this year's TIFF. It's of course always a possibility with festivals, but I guess I got lucky. However, I also wasn't completely in love with any of the movies I saw, you know? Nothing truly captured my heart and soul. That is until I saw Emilia Perez, which is not only the best film I saw at TIFF, but honestly one of my favourites from the decade so far. To the point where I am feeling some pressure to eloquently describe why I liked this so much, without spoiling anything, because once again, I fully recommend going into this completely blind. What we are basically working with here is a truly brilliant, original, and pretty serious story, but which is presented in such an exhilarating way. Director Jacques Audiard and editor Juliette Welfling inject this thing with so much life and passion and flair. So many genres and ideas are packed in here, but it never feels rushed nor congested. It's one of those movies where nothing really feels off limits. The music goes insanely hard. Zoe Saldana is mesmerizing. I always knew she had a performance like this in her. And I can't say too much else without spoiling anything, but yeah, Emilia Perez was just a joy joy to watch. Please see this when it comes out. I believe it's having a limited theatrical release in the US and Canada on the 1st of November, before debuting on Netflix on the 13th of November. It was my favourite movie of the festival, and I definitely will be rewatching it as soon as possible, hopefully on the big screen, as, you know, that's where I think you should be watching it. But yeah, amazing film. The Substance is the second feature from French director Coralie Fargier, hope I pronounced that right, and is her much anticipated follow-up to 2017's Revenge. Here we follow Demi Moore as a fading star who discovers a cell-replicating drug on the black market, which temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself, played by Margaret Qualley. And if you think the synopsis or trailers make this film look really weird, you have no idea. This is an insane movie. It's a Cronenbergian Black Mirror-y fable about beauty and aging, and the surreal pressure on women to look a certain way. The body horror in this film is horrifying. Your toes will be curled for the entire runtime, but I don't want to say much more than that. This film is out in cinemas now, so yeah, definitely check it out, but don't say I didn't warn you. Sketch was a really nice, pleasant family film to end the festival with. Directed by Seth Worley and starring my boy Buster Bluth, also known as Tony Hale, Sketch tells the story of a grieving family who have to fight for their lives when the daughter's drawings magically come to life and start wreaking havoc on their small town. Usually these kind of movies, which are fun for the whole family, worry me a bit, because often the jokes are not that funny and the child actors are not that good. However, this was not the case here. Of course it's all a bit silly, of course not every single line or emotional beat lands. However, it did win me, and I'm pretty sure the rest of the audience, over, mainly due to its heart, its humour, and the fact that the child actors are actually really likeable and not annoying at all, so fair play. And that's it, folks. That's everything I saw at TIFF. It was a truly amazing experience. Thank you so much for watching. Please watch all of these films when they are released, especially Emilia Perez, and I will catch you in the next one.